No one reads that shit today, he said. It's a magazine for brothers, said Faith. It's a motherfucking sellout, said the man, still smiling. It's played. I don't think so, said Faith. A Chinese kitchen worker came out to lift some garbage bags. An Arab watched them from the corner. Strange remote faces, thought Faith, as the man who seemed to be leader, the leader gave him a time, a date, a place in the Bronx where they could see each other in a few days. Fate kept the appointment. Three members of the Brotherhood and a black van were waiting for him. They drove to a basement near Baychester. The fat guy with the shaved head was waiting for them. Was waiting for them there. He said to call him Khalil. The others didn't give their names. Khalil talked about the Holy War. Explain what the hell you mean by Holy War, said Faith. The Holy War speaks for us when our mouths are parched, said Khalil. The Holy War is the language of the mute, of those who've lost the power of speech, of those who never knew how to speak. Why do you march against Israel? Asked Faith. The Jew is keeping us down, said Khalil. You won't see a Jew in the Klan, said Faith. That's what the Jews want us to think. In fact, the Klan is everywhere. In Tel Aviv, in London, in Washington, many leaders of the Klan are Jews, said Khalil. It's always been that way. Hollywood is full of Klan leaders. Who? Asked Faith. Khalid warned him that he was about to say was off the record. The Jew Ticons have good Jew lawyers, he said. Who? Asked Faith. Khalil named three movies directors and two actors. Then Faith had an inspiration. He asked, Is Woody Allen a member of the Klan? He is, said Khalil. Look at his movies. Have you ever seen a black man in them? Not many, said Faith. Not one, said Khalil. Why were you carrying a poster of Bin Laden? Asked Faith. Because Osama bin Laden was the first to understand that the nature of the fight we face today. Then they talk about bin Laden's innocence and Pearl Harbor and about how convenient the attack of the Twin Towers had been for some people. Stockbrokers, said Khalil. People with incriminating papers hiding in their offices. People who sell arms and needed something like that to happen. According to you, said Faith, Mohammed Atta was an undercover agent for the CIA or the FBI. What happened to Mohammed Atta's body? Khalil asked. Who can be sure Mohammed Atta was one of those planes? Was on one of those planes? I'll tell you what I think. I think Atta is dead. He died under torture, or he was shot in the back of the head. Then I think they chopped him into little pieces and ground his bones down till they looked like chicken bones. After that, they pulled the little bones and cutlets in a box, filled it with cement, and dropped it in some Florida swamp. And they did the same thing to the man he was with. So who flew the planes? Asked Faith. Klan lunatics, nameless inmates from mental hospitals in the Middle West. Volunteers brainwashed to face suicide. Thousands of people disappear in this country every year, and nobody tries to find them. Then they talked about the Romans and the Roman circus and the first Christians who were eaten by lions. But the lions will choke on our black flesh, he said. The next day, Faith met 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 them at a Harlem club, and there was introduced to Ibrahim, a man of average weight with a scared face, who set about describing to him in great details all the charitable work of the Brotherhood did in the neighborhood. They ate together and dinner next door to the club. The dinner was run by a woman. A boy helped her, and in the kitchen there was an old man who never stopped singing. In the afternoon, Khalil joined them, and Faith asked the two men where they met. In prison, they said. Prison is where black blood brothers meet. They talked about other Muslim groups in Harlem. Ibrahim and Khalil didn't think very highly of them, but they tried to be fair and maintain a dialogue with them. Sooner or later, the good Muslim will end up finding their way to the Mohammedan Brotherhood. Before he left, Faye told them that they would probably never be forgiven for having marched under the effigy of Osama bin Laden. Ibrahim and Khalil laughed. He thought they looked like two black stones quacking with laughter. They'll probably never forget it, said Ibrahim. Now they know how they are who they are dealing with, said Khalil. His editor told him to forget writing a story about the Brotherhood. Those guys how many of them are there? He asked. 20 more or less, said Faith. 20 niggers, said the editor. At least 5 of them must be FBI. Maybe more, said Faith. What makes them interesting to us? Asked the editor. Stupidity, said Faith. The endless variety of ways we destroy ourselves. Have you become a masochist, Oscar? Asked the editor. Could be, said Faith. You need to get more pussy, said the editor. Get out more, listen to music, make friends, talk to them. I thought about it, said Faith. Thought about what? About getting more pussy, said Faith. That isn't the kind of things you think about, it's the kind of thing you do, said the editor. First you have to think about it, said Faith. Then he added, Can I do the story? The editor shook his head. Forget about it, he said. Sell it to a philosophy quarterly or a urban anthropology journal, or write a fucking script if you want, and let Spike Lee shoot the motherfucker, but is not going to run in any magazine of mine. All right, said Faith. Motherfuckers marched with poster of Bin Laden, said the editor. It takes balls, said Faith. Balls of steel, plus you have to be complete goddamn moron. You know, some undercover cop came up with it, said Faith. Makes no difference, said the editor. However came up with it, it's a sign. A sign of what? Asked Faith. That we are living on a planet of lunatics, said the editor. When his editor came to the phone, Faith explained what was going on in Santa Teresa. He gave a synopsis of the story he wanted to write. He talked about the woman being killed, about the possibility that all the crimes had been committed by 1 or 2 people, which made them the biggest serial killings in history. He talked about drug trafficking and the border, about police corruption and the city's boundless growth. He promised that all he wanted was another week to get all the material needed, and then he'd come back to New York, and in 5 days he'd be filed the story. Oscar, said the editor. You are there to cover a goddamn boxing match. This is more important, said Faith. The fight is just a little story. What I'm proposing is so much more. What are you proposing? A sketch of the industrial landscape of in third world, said Fate. A piece of reportage about the current situation in Mexico, a panorama of the border, a serious crime story for Fox's sake. Reportage, asked his editor. Is that French, nigger? Since when you speak French? I don't speak French, said Fate, but I know what fucking reportage is. I know what fucking reportage is too, said the editor. And I also know merci and au revoir and faire l'amour, which is the same as couche avec moi. I think that you nigger want to coucher avec moi, but you forgot the voulez-vous, which is in this case ought to have been your first move. You heard me? You say voulez-vous or you can get the fucking out. It's a great story, said Fate. How many black men are involved in this shit? Asked the editor. Black men say what? Asked Fate. How many niggers have ropes around their necks? Asked the editor. How should I know? I'm talking about a great story, said Fate, not some riot in the ghetto. So in other words, there are no black men, said the editor. No black men, but more than 200 Mexican women killed, said Fate. How's Pickett's odds? Asked the editor. Take Count Pickett and stick him up your black ass, said Fate. You seen the other guy? Asked the editor. You can stick Count Pickett up your black faggot ass, said Fate, and ask him to watch for you, because when I get back to New York, I'm going to kick the shit out of you. You do your job and hold to your receipts, nigger, said the editors. Fate hung up. Next to him, smiling at him, was a woman in jeans and leather jacket. She was wearing sunglasses and she had a nice bag and a camera slung over the shoulder. She looked like a tourist. Are you interested in the Santa Teresa killings? She asked. Fate looked at her and took him a moment to realize that she had listened to his phone conversation. My name is Guadalupe Roncal, said the woman, holding out her hand. He shook it, and was a delicate hand. It was a delicate hand. I'm a reporter, said Guadalupe Roncal when Fate let go her hand. Let go of her hand. But I'm not here to cover the fight. Boxing doesn't interest me. Though I know some women find it sexy. To be honest, it's always struck me as a vulgar and pointless. How about you? Do you like to watch two grown men hit each other? Fate shrugged his shoulders. You won't tell. Fine. I'm not one to judge what you like to watch. Actually, I don't like any sports, not boxing for the reason I mentioned, or soccer or basketball, not even track and field. So you might wonder why I'm going, what I'm doing in a hotel full of sport reporters instead of someplace quieter, somewhere I won't have to hear all these pathetic stories of great forgotten fights every time I come down to the bar. I'll tell you if you come sit at my table and let me buy you a drink. As he followed her, it occurred to him that he might be in the company of a crazy person or maybe a hooker. But Guadalupe Roncal didn't look like a crazy person or a hooker, although Fate didn't really know what Mexican crazy people or hookers look like. For that matter, she didn't look like a reporter. They sat an outside. He sat at an outside table with a view of a building under construction, a building more than 10 stories high. Another hotel, the woman informed him with indifference. Some workers leaning or beams or some workmen leaning on beams or sitting on piles of bricks were looking at them, or so Faye thought, although it was impossible to say for sure because the figures moving around the unfinished building were too small. As I said earlier, I'm a reporter, said Guadalupe Roncal. I work for some of the big Mexico City newspapers, and I'm staying at his hotel out of fear. Fear of what? Asked Faith. Fear of everything. When you work on something that involves the killings of women in Santa Teresa, you end up scared of everything. Scared of you'll be beaten up. Scared you will be beaten up. Scared of being kidnapped. Scared of torture. Of course, the fear lessens with experience. But I don't have experience. No experience whatsoever. I'm cursed by a lack of experience. You might even say I'm here undercover as an undercover reporter, if there is such a thing. I know everything about the killings, but I am not really an expert on the subject. What I mean is, until a week ago, this wasn't my subject. I wasn't up on it. I hadn't written any about it, and suddenly, out of the blue, the file landed on my desk, and I was in charge of the investigation. Do you want to know why? Faye nodded. Because I'm a woman, and women can turn down assignments. Of course, I already knew what had happened to my predecessor. Everybody at the paper knew it. The case got a lot of attention, but you might even have heard about it. Faye shook his head. He was killed, of course. He got into deep and they killed him. Not here in Santa Teresa, but in Mexico City. The police said it was a robbery that went wrong. You want to know how it happened? He got in a taxi. The taxi drove off. Then it stopped at a corner and two strangers got in. For a while they drove around to different cash machines, watching out my predecessor's credit card. Then they headed somewhere to the edge of the city and stabbed him. He wasn't the first reporter to be killed for what he wrote. Going through his papers, I found information of two others. A woman, a radio correspondent who was kidnapped in Mexico City, and a Chicano who worked for Arizona paper called La Raza, who disappeared. The two of them were investigating the killings of women in Santa Teresa. I'd met the radio correspondent at journalism school. We were never friends. We might have exchanged for a few words at most, but I think I met her before they killed her. They raped her and tortured her. Here in Santa Teresa? Asked Faith. No man, in Mexico City. The arm of the killers is long, very long, said Guadalupe Roncal in a dreamy voice. I used to work for the city section. I almost never got a byline. I was a complete unknown. When my predecessor was killed, two of the big bosses at the paper came to see me. They invited me out to lunch. Of course, I thought I'd done something wrong, or that one of them wanted to sleep with me. I knew who they were. I knew who they were, but I had never talked to either of them. It was a nice lunch. They were proper and polite. I was quick and careful. I will be better. It would be better if I hadn't made such a good impression. Then we went back to the paper and they told me to follow them. They had something important to discuss with me. We went into one of their offices. The first thing they did ask me if I like a race. By that point, I had figured out that something strange was going on, and I was tempted to say no, but I say yes. And then they pulled out a piece of paper and named a figure, which was exactly what I was making as a city reporter. And then they looked straight at me and named another figure, which was like offering me a 40% raise. I almost jumped for joy. Then they hanged me the file my predecessor had put together and told me that from then on I will work solely and exclusively on the story of the women who had been killed in Santa Teresa. I realized that if I say no, I will lose everything. I came out almost as a whipster when I asked why me. Because you are smart, Lupita, said one of them. Because no one knows you, said the other. The woman gave a lot of a sigh. Fate smiled in understanding. They ordered another whiskey and another beer. The workmen on the building under construction had disappeared. I'm drinking too much, said the woman. Since I read my predecessor's file, I've been drinking lots of whiskey, much more than I used to. And I drink vodka and tequila too. And now I've discovered this Sonoran drink called Bacanum. And I drink that too, said Guadalupe Roncal. And every day I'm more afraid, and sometimes I can help being a nervous wreck. You've probably heard that Mexicans never get scared, she laughed. It's a lie. We get scared all right. We just know how to hide it. When I got to Santa Teresa, for example, I was so scared I thought I was going to die. On the flight here from Hermosillo, I wouldn't have minded in the plane scratched. At least it's a quick death, or so they say. Luckily, someone I work with in Mexico City had given me the address of this hotel. He told me he was going to be at the Sonora Resort to cover the fight, and that no one could hurt me around all these sport writers. So here I am. The problem is that when the fight is over, I can't live with the reporters, and I will have to stay a few more days in Santa Teresa. Why? Asked Faith. I have to interview the chief suspect in the killings. He's from the United States too. I had no idea, said Faith. How were you going to write about the crimes if you didn't know that? Asked Guadalupe Roncal. I thought I do some research on the phone just now. I was asking for more time. My predecessor was the one who knew most about all of this. It took him 7 years to get a general sense of what was going on. Life is unbearably sad, don't you think? Guadalupe Roncal messaged both temples, and if suddenly she left a migrant coming on. Guadalupe Roncal massaged both temples as if suddenly she felt a migrant coming on. She whispered something Fate couldn't hear, and then she tried to flag the waiter, but they were the only two at the outside tables. When she realized, she shivered. I have to go visit him in prison, she said. The chief suspect, your countryman, has been in prison for years. So how can be so can he, so how can he be the chief suspect? Asked Fate. I thought the crimes were still being committed. Mysteries of Mexico, said Guadalupe Roncal. Do you want to come along? Would you like to come with me and interview him? The truth is, I feel better if a man came with me, which goes against my beliefs as a feminist. Do you have anything against feminists? I heard it's hard to be a feminist in Mexico. Not if you have money, maybe, but if you are middle class, it's hard. At first, it isn't, of course. At first, it's easy. At first, it isn't, of course. At first, it's easy. In college, it's easy, for example, but as the years go by, it gets harder and harder. Mexican men, I can tell you, find feminists charming only in young women, but we age quickly here. We are built to age quickly. Thank goodness I'm still young. You're pretty young, said Fate, but I'm scared and I need company. This morning I drove past the Santa Teresa prison and I almost had a panic attack. It is that bad. It's like a dream, said Guadalupe Roncal. It looks like something alive. Alive? I don't know how to explain it. More alive than an apartment building, for example. Much more alive. Don't be shocked by what I'm about to say, but it looks like a woman who'd been hacked to pieces, but still alive, and the prisoners are living inside the woman. I understand, said Fate. No, I don't think you do, but it doesn't matter. You are interested, so I'm offering you the chance to meet the chief suspect in the killings in exchange for your company and protection. I think that seems fair and equitable. Do we have a deal? It is fair, said Fate, and very kind of you. What I don't understand is what you are afraid of. No one can hurt you in prison. In theory, anyhow, prisoners can hurt anyone. They only hurt each other. You've never seen a picture of the chief suspect? No, said Fate. Guadalupe Roncal looked up at the sky and smiled. I must seem crazy, she said, or like a hooker, but I'm neither. I'm just nervous too, and lately I've been drinking too much. Do you think I want to get you in bed? No, I believe you've told me. Among my poor predecessor's papers, there were several photographs, a few of the suspect, 3 to be precise, all the 3 taken in prison. In 2 of them, the gringo, sorry, I didn't mean that to be offensive, is sitting and looking at the camera, probably in a visitor's room. He was very blonde hair and very blue eyes. Eyes so blue he looks blind. In the 3rd picture, he's standing up, looking to the side. He's usually tall and thin, very thin, but not feeble looking at all. He has the face of a dreamer. I don't know if that makes sense. He doesn't look uncomfortable. He's in prison, but I don't get the sense he's uncomfortable. He doesn't seem calm or relaxed either. And he doesn't seem angry. He has the face of a dreamer, but of a dreamer who's dreaming at great speed. A dreamer whose dreams are far out ahead of our dreams and can scare and that scares me. Do you understand?